So this is going to be my review of X-Men 97. I'm going to do my best to not go into super deep story spoilers in this review, but I will be talking about the show enough here to where if you haven't seen the show, I would recommend watching the show first and then watching or listening to this review. It's not the way I like to do reviews, but it's the only way I can really talk about what I really thought about this show. Now, when Disney announced a few years ago that they were going to be doing an X-Men 97 show, I think everyone collectively thought, whoa, and holy shit. It seemed more likely that they would just do a brand new X-Men animated series, but collectively, I don't think anyone had an issue of them doing X-Men 97, since the 90s X-Men series was beloved. Prior to the big boom of Marvel superhero movies in the early 2000s, it was the Marvel animated shows of the 90s that really brought the Marvel characters into the mainstream for most audiences. That 90s era of Marvel TV shows holds a special place in the hearts for Marvel fans, as it was the first shared universe where all of these shows were connected. The 90s Spider-Man show was my personal favorite out of all of these, but X-Men would get second place for me, and it was great because it appropriately captured the spirit of what X-Men is supposed to be. Mature storytelling, politics, character struggles, all of which helped it be super faithful to the OG comics. The original run of the show had 5 seasons and ended in 1996, and now we have X-Men 97 appropriately picking up in the year 1997. The general premise of the show is the same. A band of mutants use their uncanny gifts to protect the world that hates and fears them. For starters, how could you not get hyped when that theme song gets going? It's basically a complete recreation of the 90s intro, obviously with the updated animation, new orchestrated version, and some other scene change updates. It's one of those things where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Overall, the look of this show is what you would want from a continuation 30 years later. Faithful to the original character models of the run, but just in a sleeker, sharper style that really does feel like a comic book. The first season of this relaunch was 10 episodes. It was a week-by-week release, as Disney Plus typically does, although it did have a 2-episode premiere on the first week. Now, these first 2 episodes were sensational. It was great seeing the 90s team together again, and just seeing the series in the updated style was great. But I just love that these episodes were more down to earth and looking at the human-mutant relationships, Magneto coming back and leading the X-Men. That was obviously an interesting dynamic. And of course the whole trial of Magneto happening while Jean, or I guess Madeline, was giving birth. That was great. And finally the holy shit moment with Storm losing her powers. Collectively, I believed episodes 1 and 2 were 10 out of 10 episodes. After this, I was like, yeah, let's bring on some more fun. And a decent amount of the remaining 8 episodes I believe lived up to these first 2 episodes. The notable one that stood out to me before we got to the final few episodes was the Genosha episode. Individually, I think Rogue had the strongest arc here. Obviously her issue of not being able to touch anyone obviously complicates her relationship with Gambit, and I love that the show went into depth about her fling with Magneto. Also, that line she says at the end of this Genosha episode, wow, is that great and powerful. That really stuck with a whole lot of people, I believe. Also with Rogue, that voice is just hot as and I just love hearing her talk. Now, what's very interesting and notable about the whole dynamic with this series is that X-Men media, whether it's animation or the movies obviously, have the tendency to turn into the Wolverine show. He's the most iconic X-Men, the most marketable, and there was a show called Wolverine and the X-Men. Now, the 90s show actually avoided turning into this kind of dynamic, and the same thing happens to an even greater degree here. All of the characters, mainly the ones that we see in the intro, get what you can describe as their own episode. Cyclops and Jean dealing with Jean's clone, Storm coping with her power loss, I already mentioned Rogue, Gambit gets some focus, and eventually Professor X gets his time to shine. Once you get to the final 3 episodes, where it becomes a more team effort and you see all of them working together. Unfortunately, this whole singular character focusing dynamic led to easily the worst episode, and that was the one that focused on Jubilee, episode 4 I believe, the episode where she got sucked into that video game. There was a returning villain here that was from the 90s series, and I like Jubilee, but holy shit, did this episode suck. It was uninteresting, silly, terrible villain, and just really missed the point of why people like the series. Had there been more episodes like this show would have been in major trouble. Like the Jubilee episode here, there were some episodes that really did rely on knowledge of the 90s show. Mainly all the stuff of Mr. Sinister and him causing trouble for the Summers family with the whole cloning thing going on. If you hadn't watched the 90s show, unfortunately you won't know what the is going on here. Things can get a little messy with the storytelling in this respect if you're a newcomer. What's very interesting is that after watching the whole of Season 1, every X-Men, including Beast, gets their own episode except for Wolverine, who's honestly sidelined through a whole lot of this series, without anything that meaningful or memorable to do and not really even a ton of lines. The most memorable thing that happens to Wolverine happens towards the end of Season 1, where he gets his absolutely wrecked by Magneto. It's a famous moment from the X-Men comics that, as far as I've seen, has never been done in any media. All I could think of when it started to happen was, oh my god, they're actually doing it. It was definitely one of the highlight moments of the show for sure. Other highlight moments were the scenes where the show remembered that it was actually taking place in a Marvel universe where there's other Marvel heroes. As mentioned, the 90s X-Men show took place in a shared universe with other Marvel animated shows, so they were thereby connected in that way. The most memorable crossovers happened in the Spider-Man show, in which there was a 2-episode crossover with Spider-Man and the X-Men. Those reference moments were definitely fun because they were worked in seamlessly here. Besides the bit with Captain America, which did make him look like kind of a dickhead, none of them were anything that meaningful story-wise besides just reminding you that, yeah, this isn't just an isolated universe where just the X-Men live in. With all the crazy shit happening here, it would be very unrealistic not to think, what the hell are the other superheroes doing when all this end-of-the-world stuff is happening? Naturally, my favorite moments, though, were the scenes that referenced the Spider-Man show, as that was the favorite show out of these 90s shows for me. What was great is that with just one shot, they were able to pay off a cliffhanger that the 90s Spider-Man show ended on. After all these years, we can sleep easy knowing that Peter got his happy ending. Of course, within your final 3 episodes, the stakes really get raised to the next level for both mutants and mankind, once the main issue of the Sentinels gets revealed and then Magneto being Magneto. You know, some people, or rather some mutants, just never change. Probably the funniest moment of the whole show is when he's finally heard enough of Xavier's speeches and just flat out tells him or begs him to shut the up. I definitely really enjoyed the 3-part finale here. It was fun superhero animated spectacle in action that didn't forget to put the character personal struggles first. While not perfect all the way through, X-Men 97 was definitely a high-quality continuation of the classic series that raises the bar for Marvel animation and what fans can expect from everyone's favorite mutants going forward, whether it's more shows or Season 2, or of course the eventual full-on Disney movie reboot. So 9 out of 10 X's for X-Men 97. Collectively, it just felt like everyone was watching this series and having a great time with it, with the friends I was talking to and what you hear on social media. So hopefully it doesn't take too long for Season 2 to come. With all the acclaim that this show is getting, now there's clamoring for a Spider-Man 98, a continuation of the 90s Spider-Man show, and I gotta say, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Just saying, that would be pretty sick to see that series come back. But if Marvel's really looking to continue another acclaimed superhero animated series of theirs, then the Spectacular Spider-Man is the way to go. To continue that fantastic series and get it off of that awful cliffhanger that Season 2 ended on, oh, my life would truly be complete. But enough of me rambling about my Spider-Man animated fantasies. That'll do it for this review of X-Men 97. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.